This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
Are you feeling more fulfilled now that you're back to work?
This Friday.
No. I need a vacation.
See the movie that critics are saying is an awesome.
Look at that.
Crowd-pleasing, fist-pumping, all-out brawl of a film.
You're right about that.
They're coming after our family. Go fix this.
Oh, my.
Nobody 2. Rated R. Only in theaters Friday.
That sound is the leaky shower head that came with your place. The one that has you starting every morning with a low-pressure nightmare that's nearly your age. Stop settling for someone else's shower. Consider this your wake-up call to swap it for the relaxing feel of a Moen shower head and see how one easy change changes everything. Water designs our life. Who designs for water? Moen.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero, and you're listening to the Tour Coach Podcast. Just like we've been doing for the last couple of years here on the Tour Coach, I'm going to be bringing you lots of chats, interviews, roundtable discussions on what we do, how we do it, from players to coaches to caddies, students. All of this comes from my travels that are on tour or to Old Palm or from here in Mobile or wherever it is I go around this country or around the world teaching and coaching at the game of golf that I love. So hopefully if you listen, you're going to like what you hear. There's lots and lots of info and content coming your way that I think are going to help all of you understand and play the game even better or coach the game. We've got so many coaches that listen to this Tour Coach podcast. So appreciate all of you that have gone along with me on this journey for the Tour Coach. I didn't necessarily know where I was going with it when I started this when the Dew Sweepers radio show ended on XM Sirius. But I can tell you that it has given me so much freedom and creativity to be able to talk a little more and a little more in depth and bring all of you a behind the scenes, inside the ropes look at what me and my team do and the people that we associate with it and how you can use us as a resource to help you get better at the game of golf. Look, and if you like what you hear on the Tour Coach, also make sure you check out our Pro Work video series, which is available for you on YouTube and my YouTube channel. If you just go on YouTube and type in Pro Work, it'll pull up the episodes that are out there. Some really, really great stuff that takes you behind the scenes and inside the ropes. And before I let you go to the Tour Coach, special thanks to my sponsors that have all been with me for such a long time. Shrixon Golf, been with them over 20 years. Can't find anybody better in the equipment side of the world. Bushnell Golf, such a big part of what we're doing with Pro Work and what I do day to day, especially with the Launch Pro. Vineyard Vines, Ian and Shep, Amber and the folks there always keep me looking great. We've been such great partners for a good long time. And lastly, McConnell Automotive here in Mobile, Alabama. Mitch McConnell and the gang, there's nobody that has supported me longer. I mean, they're unbelievable. And the folks at Buick GMC for supporting the Dew Sweepers radio show, as well as the Tour Coach and as well as Pro Work. So check out McConnell Automotive and Buick GMC. And lastly, my friend Blaine Stokely and Stokely's Midtown Garden Express here in Mobile. Those folks keep the Dew Sweepers and keep the Pro Work and the Tour Coach and all of our content alive and well for all of you that love the game and want to learn. Enjoy the Tour Coach podcast, which is coming your way right now. All right, so sitting in here with me on the Tour Coach podcast, is Kelvin Kelley. He's one of the up-and-coming young teachers to watch out of California, born and raised in California, out in San Francisco, was at the Olympic Club. This interview was actually referred to us by a listener of the Tour Coach, and as well as his podcast on Twitter. I guess it's called X now. Elon's renamed it. But anyways, I thought it was, to me, it's always cool when people listen and then people say, hey, you ought to get, you ought to get this teacher or coach on. I'm always looking to find out. I think one of the things that I really take pride in and I really try to do a decent job in is to mentor, shed light on, expose younger teachers coming up that are making an impact. And obviously he's one of the Golf Magazine teachers to watch. Nick Domingo and the folks there do such a good job highlighting the up-and-coming teachers. So excited to have Kelvin on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Tony. I appreciate you having me on. Your podcast has been one of my favorites for a few years now. It's a great podcast for coaches to listen to, just to have an open mind and get better. When
the Tour Coach started, it was kind of it was actually Lucas Glover's idea of all things. But back when I was working with him, but I had been on Sirius XM PGA Tour radio for 13, 14 years, something like that. And it was all golf instruction. And then when we left there and that deal ended, it was like, well, what do you do? Do we keep doing something? And I mean, from all the stuff you do, you also kind of don't mind a break a little bit, 14, 15 years or whatever it was doing radio was plenty, but I've been enjoying the heck out of the podcast and doing this and enjoy the opportunity just to sit and talk golf. And when it started, I mean, like we have tons of just golfers. Obviously somebody driving around listening to you and I is a golf nut. Right. I mean, and loves golf and all of that. Or, I mean, this probably wouldn't be the podcast for somebody like just trying to entertain themselves. You got to love the game of golf to be listening. But it's morphed into where we have so many teachers and coaches listening to this, which wasn't the initial kind of idea for it, but that's kind of what it's turned into. But it's turned into a pretty cool thing. So I'm looking forward to learning about you. I've read some stuff, heard some stuff, obviously. Tell me a little about your golf. I'm always fascinated by coaches and their journey, how they get to where they are. What made you want to coach? What made you want to teach? What guided you along the way? Those stories are the things that always interest me, fascinate me. I'm vocal about my upbringing under some great teachers and the folks that have taken an interest in me. Looking forward to hearing about yours.
Yeah, so I'm 38 years old. Like you mentioned, I'm born and raised, pretty much stayed in California, although I spent a lot of time traveling with golf and traveling watching other instructors teach as well. Went to Cal State Northridge years ago down in San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and first started working at a course called Rustic Canyon. I actually started off in the cart barn there, my summertime job, and then worked my way into the shop, and then got into the PGA program. And fast forward, worked my way up to a golf course up here in Northern California at Healdsburg. Started teaching a bit, doing the PGA program, knocked that out. Then I was fortunate enough to start working and teaching out at Sonoma Golf Club. Used to host the Charles Schwab Cup finale. And then I was out there for a few years. Then I was extremely fortunate to get to start working and teaching out at Olympic Club out here in the Bay Area. Started to kind of, I guess, build my stable of players or grow my business a bit, and then was able to break away and do my own thing as an independent contractor about 3-4 years ago. So now I teach at a practice facility called Mariners Point out here in Foster City and Peacock Gap in San Rafael. They're about an hour apart. One's 30 minutes north of San Francisco, then one's 30 minutes south of San Francisco. So I am living right in the middle in good old San Francisco here. Although it's not as bad as the media says, I promise. I mean, it's still bad, but it's not bad.
Not as bad.
It's not as bad. It's not good. I got to be honest. It's not good, but it's not as bad as what you.
I mean, that's a conversation for a totally different day. I was, during the PGA during COVID, which was out there at Harding Park. I was out there, and that was when everything was shut down, and we were in an Airbnb, and Lucas had he had somebody come in to cook and all that. It was wild. It was like it was like being in a war zone. It was one of the most surreal, bizarre scenes and the people living on the street. It was insane. From somebody from Mobile, Alabama that spends time in South Florida, it was a different scene. But talk about like a lot of teachers coming up. I mean, we generally start in the golf business. We figure out teaching is where we want to be. That's our passion, and then we work our way and kind of find our way to the right place to teach and grow. And obviously having the opportunity to be at the Olympic Club, I'm sure surrounded you with a lot, not only great players, but influential people. And those are to me, that's one of the important things, is finding people that'll help you along the way, because learning to teach golf is not for the faint of heart, and it's not the easiest, and it's certainly not the easiest way to make a living when you get started.
Absolutely correct. That's basically, So how my journey started with teaching is I realized I wanted to coach right away, even at a young age. The second I picked up a golf club, I was just fascinated with the golf swing. Probably too much at that point, and I'd really gotten into a performance state or how to practice in an efficient way, but just trying to figure out how it worked. And this is pre-Instagram and YouTube. And so I spent a lot of time at the library growing up, just waiting for the Golf Digest, Golf Magazine to show up in the mail, looking at my pals' swings who were better than me, just literally just trying to figure out, how it worked. Once I started teaching and coaching for a living, I just bounced around to watch as many instructors as I could, and traveled a few spots to different locations in the country. Kind of fate would have it, I'm extremely fortunate that a friend, or actually a member at Sonoma Golf Club, who I played a lot of golf with, and I was bouncing around with other instructors too, working on my own game. I was never good enough to play on a tour by any means, but I still really enjoy working on my own game, like most people do. So it's kind of both, actually, I should say, working on my own game a bit, and on top of it, just trying to get better as a coach. But I was playing with a member out at Sonoma, and he introduced me to a top coach out here in the Bay Area, Alex Murray, who teaches and taught Maverick McNeely, who won 10 times at Stanford, who plays on the PGA Tour now, and teaches all basically the top junior players and out here in Northern California, really all around. So I pestered him, trying to get in there to watch him teach, and he finally let me in on one of my days off. And I brought in my notepad and paper and a pencil, and just jotted down many notes as I could in the 8 hours. And I still today remember I went home, and I felt relieved that kind of everything he said finally made sense to me. I'd been around to some other instructors where still, great instructors, and looking back, some things I agree with and disagree. We all have our own philosophy, right, and a bit of taste of what we like, and definitely gained a little bit of knowledge from everybody. But yeah, when I met Alex, everything just kind of came together, and just luckily he happened to be out here in the Bay Area as well, just an hour away from me. So this is while I was at Sonoma Olympic, and I started just watching him teach more and more, and he was extremely gracious in the fact that he would let me pop in with some of his students, and I was able to ask a lot of questions. And he still teaches and coaches Rod Pampling, who plays on the Champions Tour. He had players like Chad Campbell popping in, and some other high quality tour players. So that would be my major mentor, because I know the show is big on kind of your journey and who mentored you, and hands down that's mine. I got to give pretty much all my credit to him, to be honest. I was so frustrated in trying to make things work, and maybe I'm just not smart enough to figure it out on my own, but couldn't really get anything to understand. Couldn't really understand matchups and all that. And so yeah, he played a major role in my journey, and I'm still picking picking people's minds, every coach I can, just trying to gain as much knowledge as I can, because like you said before, we can always still get better. And like we chatted about, that's the beauty of your podcast.
Well, I think I love the going to watch people teach, and it blows me away that teachers charge for that or don't allow people to do it. Like, I mean, heck, I would be nowhere if it wasn't for, folks letting me come watch them. Right. And I think in this, what's that? Oh yeah. People charge for that now. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I did not. That's the first I've heard of that.
No, trust me. I get people all the time message me or And there's a bunch of people that don't let people come too, and like it's like they got something top secret or something, you know.
That's brutal.
But
that's
it's
definitely not the way to go.
No, I agree, and I think that you know, I think too in the information age we are with social media and all that, and the ability to watch stuff online. Well, I think it's fantastic. Like, you know, I'm not saying I don't watch clips of something here and there, but I still don't think that replaces the getting your ass in a car and driving to taking your time to sit there and watch somebody teach and see what they do, you know? And I think that kudos to you for doing that, because I see less and less people doing it, right? Because there's so much stuff online, but I don't think you can get the same experience unless you're sitting there. And I love the fact that you said you took notes, because I'm curious when you're watching somebody, what you're looking for. I'm always sitting there trying to think, you know, I know I went, you know, I've gone a few times and I've hung out and I've watched a lot of great teachers, right? And I'm always sitting there trying to think, okay, if I was teaching the lesson, where would I start? Then now, why did they start here, and what was the reason for doing it, right? You know, yep. Curious what your thoughts were when you're sitting there when you were observing and you're trying to figure your stuff out.
Yeah, I would say it's mostly just the overall structure of it. The first thing I would do is say they're hitting balls, hitting a few wedges, warming up, and they get into their mid-iron, whatever they're working on. I would try and instantly figure out, you know, what would I do? Mm-hmm. And then I compare that instantly to what they do. And then for me, I think it's mostly the communication, how they communicate it. And obviously that's another art of teaching, is getting you can know all the information, but getting your point across and getting the student to retain it is another ball game. And just how he goes about, how the teacher goes about, you know, putting their hands on them, moving them around, or using video, or giving them any sort of augmented feedback in between shots. Is it 5 balls, take a break, in a bit more variety practice? How many off-speed shots are they hitting? And even just the conversation of person to person, where they're trying to get out of their golf and building the relationship with that person. One thing I've learned is I'm not a tip teacher where a student comes in and I'm going to throw a Band-Aid on their swing unless it's one of my students going out. Yeah, unless it's one of my students going out for a round and look, I'm hooking in, you know, get me through the round. That's obviously a bit different, but I think it's important to build a relationship with somebody and have the student have a long-term plan to get better, and they have a solid foundation. They can, you know, have something to fall back on when they hit their peaks and valleys. So, yeah, just the overall communication, I would say, just how they build that rapport. Obviously, some of the technical stuff, but yeah, I still like doing it as a refresher. Sometime every probably 6 months, I'll actually video or record with my students' permission, my lesson, just to hear myself talk. And, you know, it's easy to fall into a rut and not pay attention to what you're saying. And I recorded one of my conversations like 3-4 months ago, and I luckily it was a returning student, and I have a good rapport with them. But I got home and listened to it. I'm like, man, how is this guy even coming back? I don't think there's information overload and some other things I needed to work on. But that's the beauty of teaching, right? You're always trying to get better as a coach.
Yeah, I think information overload is a problem that's out there. You know, I see it more and more with folks. I think that and this is probably like one of those huge rash generalizations, right? But like, you know, I think as teachers get older and more experienced, the best teachers find ways to get done by saying less. And then you watch younger folks come up and they tend to say lots of stuff and give lots of info. And I remember, you know, one of the first times my mentor watched me teach, I remember I was so damn nervous. I thought I was going to crap myself, you know. I was like shaking, you know, and he pulled me to the side and said, you know, taking a lesson from you is like taking a sip of water from a garden hose, you know, and, or from a fire hydrant rather. And, you know, and that always struck me, like, to try to give less. And I've tried to do that, but I think communication's such a big deal and such a big part of what we do. The ability to find simple ways to communicate it. You talked about the foundation and the fundamentals of things. What are some of the foundations? Like, so when whether it's a junior, I love the fact that you don't do quick fixes. I agree. I I do it every now and then, somebody heading out, but for the most part, I think real success. And I also think from becoming a teacher and a better teacher, having a real plan for a student and the ability to lay that out in front of them and to say, here's where we're going is a powerful tool. If they know that you have a plan and where you're going with them as a teacher, I think they tend to buy in and they believe in you. If they believe in you, I think you're over halfway there towards getting them to get better. But when you look at a student the first time, what are some of the things you look at that helps you put together your plan for that student?
Yeah, first thing is I definitely want to pick their brain and understand what concepts they have through their mind. It's so easy now to, obviously, like you mentioned, hop on YouTube or Instagram and go down a rabbit hole of quick fixes, or even their background and what they came from in their original lessons a few years ago, and what their original pattern was, and that'll usually we'll dive into what the ball flight does, and what they want to see, what it does when they hit it well, what they do when they mishit it, what they want to see, and then in terms of a bit more of the technical stuff or kind of my philosophy, I've always just believed and enjoyed looking at simple golf swings. Ones where there's not a lot of recovery or moving parts in the swing to find impact. And I guess you could use the word efficient. In terms of building the foundation, I mean, it always starts in the most controllable areas. And to me, the most controllable areas is the address position or setup. Any point where you're not putting the club in motion. Because once you put the club in motion, obviously it becomes a lot harder to train, which can be done. But I'm always trying to fix it from the start. It's always made the most sense to me after I heard that from Alex and Gary Edwin, who also played a major influence on my teaching. So it starts with the setup, and it's the first thing I'm always gonna look at when somebody walks in my doors. I have my preference on what I like to see. There's definitely not one setup. Everybody has a couple different builds, different physiology. So based on their pattern, I might tweak it, but there are some things that I like to see in that setup to make the swing a bit more efficient. So usually the origin I find lies in that as well. And going back to the importance of the setup and literally the first 2 feet that club swings back. So I definitely educate the student on the first time, and I'll spend a little bit more time on video, I think, than maybe most teachers, because making a swing change and having that foundation, it starts in the brain first before you're out there whacking machine gun and balls down the range. So I want them to fully understand the concepts and get them to understand their pattern, and usually the opposite pattern on what we're trying to get them to do long term.
Yeah, 2 things. You talked about the importance of address or setup, and I gave a lesson the other day in Montgomery, Alabama, up at Montgomery Country Club, and a guy that had come back to the game. I spent the whole hour on posture. Right. Yep. And had to keep filming him because it felt weird as hell. Right. He thought there's no way that was the way you're supposed to stand. Right. And, by the end, he hit it a lot better. I think one of the most in these, in the days with everybody's got 3D and everybody's looking at wrist angles, all that. I think one of the things that's really often overlooked that really does help recreational golfers or golfers of any skill level is people just overlook the importance of being balanced at setup. They look at a lot of other things, but like you said, there's a lot of different postures, a little different ways to do it. But like, to me, balance and being balanced is never going to go out of style.
Yeah, it never will. All good swings will have some sort of balance, if you wanted to use that word. Sure. I'll definitely get them to understand the difference between pressure and weight. I use the term throwing angles. It's, if I could best describe it over a podcast, throwing posture angles is if you're looking at somebody face on, they're almost in their body and arm structure and trail arms almost in a position where it looks like they're getting ready to throw a ball or hit the golf ball forward to the target, which is obviously where we want the ball to go. So it's a little bit different than what most people think of as the usual posture, where the ball is in the middle of their feet and their upper body's directly over their lower body and everything's neutral. I like to see some levels and angles, or the lead side's a bit higher than the trail side, and giving it the Ben Hogan arms or the Peter Thompson arms with the right side below the left and a tucked right arm, and bit pressure forward and the mass behind the ball. And I call it body shape, and it's throwing shape. It looks like you're getting ready to throw a ball forward, and that's really where the efficient part starts.
Yeah, I think that I do a lot, obviously, with resistance bands and athletic movements. I think that it's easier to help folks learn things, especially if you can relate it to other athletic movements and, rotary motions. I like the idea. I use the analogy of throwing a lot. We'll throw a soccer ball type thing, help them learn to load into their trail side and release and how you throw. When it comes to tech, I always ask this question to young teachers: how much do you use tech in a lesson? This is as much part of doing this podcast is I learn from the folks that I bring on, and just curious. I love what you said about explaining and sitting down and explaining to the student where you're going and why. I think one thing that gets often overlooked is it really taking the time to explain to the student why you think something's important and why they should make the change. And because to me, if they don't really understand that, if they go home and they hit balls for an hour and it's pretty crappy, the odds that they keep sticking with it aren't great if they don't really understand why they're doing something. How much do you use technology as a younger teacher in helping explain the why to students? Just curious.
Yeah, I definitely use video a lot, whether it be my iPad, my cell phone, or video at my learning center. Just because, feel isn't real. So players are often shocked when they when they look up and see themselves on the video. So I guess you could say it's reinforcement. So I definitely use video a lot just so they can see what's actually going on, which will more times than not be different than what they're feeling, or wow, I didn't realize it's still clear in my left side that early, or wow, I took the club back that far. And so definitely reinforcement and get them to understand that feel isn't real. So hands down video pretty much every lesson, unless I have a really good rapport with somebody and they're maybe going out to play the next day or same day. I was fortunate enough to get a TrackMan a few years back, and I'll pull that out in terms of showing my numbers of students if I need validation.
Yeah,
those things don't lie for the most part. So I'm like, hey, look, you're 6 degrees down and across it. Like, no, I can hit it from the inside. Well, look, you've hit 20 balls and they're all 7 degrees from the outside, and get him to show it. So it's nice to have an absolute with that measurement. But in terms of the TrackMan, I'll even that's mostly for me. Rarely do I even really show the student unless we're doing some shot shaping to get them to match up a feel. But that's a little bit for me to I'll get a roll in the majority of my lessons, but I'm taking a look at it, not necessarily sharing that information with my student. I find being out here too in the tech capital of the world, they gravitate towards that TrackMan, man. They become obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And then they're hitting shots, staring at numbers. So it's mostly for me, or I'll just put the TrackMan up to the face part of it and be like, look, you're healing it. Let's get this off the center. I find that actually one of the most useful parts of the TrackMan, although you can throw obviously face spray on a face, but just getting them to start with center contact is great with that. Or when I'm doing a little bit more performance mode and using the performance center on the TrackMan, that's phenomenal. But in terms of the numbers of the ball metrics, for the most part, and there are exceptions, and I'm using that literally to educate myself too. And sometimes like it's shocking, and the guy's swinging it like an axe murder, and all of a sudden you look down at it, and the path wasn't that far off the majority of the time. Obviously, the face angle will be all over the place, but he did a pretty good job making that swing work over and over, although it's not obviously, if there is such a thing, consistent as they would like. So mostly for myself, a huge fan of mirror work, and that's kind of a staple of what I teach, and getting students to elaborate on your question as well, getting students to understand their pattern, what they're looking for, and going old school, really getting them in front of a mirror or reflection, any sort of way they can get feedback. And mirror work's done with your looking into a mirror with your head up, not in front of a mirror with your face on the ground. Looking into a mirror and doing slow, deliberate swings and checking positions, then looking down at an imaginary ball and capturing that feel, and blending that into hitting balls. So a little bit of mirror work that matches, or video that matches up into the mirror work, so the player can start training themselves properly. And obviously that starts with understanding their ball flight and their tendencies.
That is old school. I love it. I use, it seems like the longer I do this, the more I've gotten back to going back to stuff I learned early, like having people do a lot of slow motion swings, right? Like full motion, but crazy slow, maybe where it's full motion and the ball's just going to go barely off the end of the tee type of deal. Right. I know from one of the podcasts and the teacher, that we have the golf coach development Zoom call that we do monthly. Butch was on a month ago, and he talked about how he films practice swings, people making swings and doing, whether it's, slow motion or practice swings without the ball, to show them that they can do things. I think those are powerful tools, like whether it's in the mirror or slow motion, or practice swings without a ball, where they can learn what it is, but you can also film it and give them feedback to show them that they can do things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of obvious. If they're not doing it right in there, whatever change you're looking them to make, whether it be the dress position or backswing position or position A, if they're not doing it right in a practice swing, they're probably certainly not going to be doing it right at slow motion and definitely not at full speed. So, I mean, it makes sense to me if they can't do it without a ball, and they're certainly probably not going to do it with a ball. So I think it would have to start with in a practice swing, and then I have a system where I use gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, who I got through Carl Morris, who's a performance coach out in the UK, where it's gear 1, just a mini shot. And I call it Hogan speed, where it's just a 7-iron, hitting it out there 20 yards and just being really mindful of your position, which isn't easy to do, by the way.
No.
I'm always fascinated with how many good players really, really struggle with that. And then my gear 2 would be 50% speed, just a half speed, say mid-iron. And then that's usually where I'll videotape it. And we'll do sets of balls in each gear. And then finally gear 3, which is a bit more of golf course or performance speed. So I like to give them some structure for when they go out and practice.
Yeah, structure for practice is, so important, because so many folks don't know how to. Heck, I mean, they don't know how to practice. And a lot of folks that are you get all types. You get folks that don't have time, aren't going to practice, but you get the folks that are grinding on it and not being very efficient or effective when they practice. You talked about throwing angles, or that you teach kind of a throwing angle. Take us through that a little more. I'm fascinated by that, and maybe some of the tools, the drills, et cetera, that you would have a student on your tee do to maybe learn and improve some of these angles.
Yeah, well, after they get into their throwing position at dress, obviously it starts there. Just going back to my journey in coaching too, I was always fascinated with the direction the body moves, in terms of the top and the bottom, and how much side bend, and what direction the shoulders are going around, the hips and knees, and just how the whole unit moves. Once I get players, again, this is just preference. There's obviously always more than one ways to skin a cat. Once I get somebody put into their throwing angles, it's really getting their body to. I don't really use the word turn, because the word turn is pretty subjective. I do use the word throw or a coil. I get their body to move in a direction that looks like they're getting ready to go forward and around towards the target, or a throwing position, essentially. And that means usually after they're, say, I'm trying to do my best to describe this on a podcast, if they're out of dress and their lead side's a bit high and their trail side's a bit low, and they got their right arm in front of them, almost like they're getting ready to push up against the wall. If I looked at that face onto me, that looks like somebody's reared back their right arm and got their top back behind their bottom just slightly to throw a ball forward. If they continued to, say, look over their left shoulder and had this is one of my drills in my stable of drills. If I gave them an impact bag and they held the impact bag in front of them, right? They put their hands on the side of the impact bag, they're bent from their hips in their throwing angles, golf posture. They held the bag on the side, and they had the logo of whatever impact bag, hit it hard on the top of the impact bag. And I had them just with their arms swing it around them level. I mean, just swing it around them slightly, like they're getting ready to throw the bag forward out towards the target, or a medicine ball up against the wall. Usually the body will respond to that natural throwing direction of the bag, where the right side will move back and around, and the lead side will come out a bit. Usually that people tell me it feels like the right glute's going. This is for a right-handed golfer, by the way. It feels like their right glute's going back over their right glute's going back over their left heel a bit, and their top or their mass is working back behind the ball. So I love any kind of small bag throws to keep it simple. Pretty much eliminates and you get more serious golfers listening to your podcast, eliminates a little bit more of the left side bend or the tilt down. Yeah. I try and avoid that word. I don't like when players tilt down. A tilt would be obviously for a right-handed player, where it looks like their upper body's going down into the ground. on the throwing analogies, to me, that looks like a person throwing a ball straight into the ground.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they have to recover with their legs, and then they're throwing a ball back up, because what goes down, what tilts down has to tilt back and up. So there's a lot of recovery in the swing. So if they don't have a lot of left side bend or tilt, and their body gets into that throwing position, their body can work forward and around, and they can hit it with their mass, and that eliminates a lot of excess body motion. So the bag throw is definitely priority number one in my drills, or medicine ball throw. And it's just a small motion. It's not a big wind up, which gets the arms to pull around the body if you start a bit more efficiently.
Awesome stuff. Kelvin, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got a busy teaching schedule out there. Appreciate you taking the time and reaching out, and kudos to the gentleman on, I think it was a gentleman on X or Twitter that recommended you coming on. Awesome stuff. Great insight. Very cool to chat with you. Hopefully we'll do this again, maybe run into each other, get to chat more about golf, but appreciate you sitting in. Let everybody know how to find you out there, find out where you are, how to get more about your instruction and so forth.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. Like I mentioned before, your podcast is definitely my top podcast out there. Listen to it on my way to work. Even if you agree or disagree with a coach, it still opens your mind and gets you another way to think about things. That's the beauty of teaching. So keep up the good work. And again, thanks for having me on. My website is kelleygolf.com, and Kelley is Kelley. There's golf.com. There's a second E in there. People always miss. And not too active on Twitter, on Instagram. It's mostly pictures of my dog. I am
Nothing wrong with that.
On Twitter. Yeah, exactly. I am on Twitter, where I spend a little bit more time, kind of post some old swings and stuff like that, at Kelley, Kelley _golf. So in the process of building a bit more of a platform on my website in the coming months, but right now it's where players can find me.
Awesome stuff. Great. Kelvin, thanks so much for sitting in. Continued success. Look forward to catching up soon. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Tony.
I hope you enjoyed this edition of The Tour Coach and this conversation that we brought to you about playing, learning, and teaching the game of golf. We'll be back next week with another edition of The Tour Coach. In between now and next week, make sure you follow us on our social channels. You can always find me at The Dew Sweeper on Instagram, or go to our YouTube page, where you'll see a scene and a video from my teachings daily on our YouTube channel. You can find that by looking up Tony Ruggiero and the Dew Sweepers on YouTube. Until then, make sure you follow and check out Everything Tour Coach and all our sponsors: Srixon Cleveland Golf, Bushnell, Vineyard Vines, and Buick GMC. I'll be back next week to help all of us appreciate, learn, and enjoy the game of golf. Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero. And look, recently, several teachers I know and several players have had some scares with skin cancer. In fact, I recently went and saw a dermatologist here in town, and I had a couple things frozen off: eyelid, my face, my earlobe, and not getting any younger. And I know it's getting to that time of the season where it's cooler, but look, being in the sun is a real deal, and I've not been very good, to be totally honest, my whole career at using it at all, because I didn't like how greasy it was, how hard it was to get off your hands, how it clogged up my pores. And then I found this sunscreen, Visor Skincare. It's clear, it goes on, it doesn't dry you out, it isn't greasy, it's like you didn't put anything on it. By far, it's the best sunscreen I've ever used. Without a doubt, is the easiest to use. And we've got a discount code for all of you. All you have to do is go to visorskincare.com, use our code word DewSweeper. visorskincare.com, code word DewSweeper.